we have to start thinking more long term because most people can't think past the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so important because then that sets up the process like what is a BHAG, big, very audacious goal. That is a long-term target, and you have to keep yourself or your team accountable to the things that you're doing in order to get closer to those goals.
This is BetterWealth with Caleb Williams. Welcome back to another episode of the BetterWealth Breakdown, where we break down ideas, concepts, and thoughts from around the world to help you live a more intentional life. And in today's episode, Dan is going to break down the first ever time, because I have never heard this yet, the acronym of BetterWealth, or an acronym that we're going to start using at BetterWealth.
Yeah.
We'll probably have t-shirts in like 2 weeks, so stay tuned.
The new acronym at BetterWealth, LTAR, and the idea here is...
should we get that trademark?
Yeah, LTAR, long-term accountable results. And this whole episode is about why long-term accountable results matter. And Jeremy, you and Jeremy have talked a lot about a model and why modeling is important. And well, what does the model do? It starts accountability today, but is projecting out to age 100. And that's where that long-term accountability comes into play. Because if we just hold people accountable today, that has nothing to do with the long term. And you can look at health, you can look at finances, you can look at fitness, you can look at almost anything. And if you're like, for example, our team, a good chunk of our team, I'll say at this point, are doing 50 push-ups a day.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that for the full year, starting December 1st, 2020, we're going to do 50 push-ups a day. And that is long-term accountability, not just, but we also have that short-term aspect on the daily basis of saying, yep, I did it.
Yep.
But if I simply just check the box and said I did it today, there's no long-term aspect to that. I'm not actually going to see the long-term result. And so I think what's so important is to not just check the box, but look at what does this long-term approach look like? Because you're looking forward, but you're also looking backward to see the progress that you've made.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really exciting is sometimes it's hard. Actually, I don't even say sometimes. A lot of times it's hard for people to see that future result.
Totally.
But if you can model it, and you can know that there's an independent party here that is going to hold you accountable to that. That's why this is so powerful. And I think, I'm just going to use fitness again. If you get a personal trainer, they're going to hold you accountable.
Right.
And if you, and this is what's so interesting is instead of paying for like a month, but you pay for 6 months or you pay for 12 months, that person should be holding you accountable in the long haul because that's what you asked for.
Yeah, a lot of things I'm thinking about this. Can you say that again? Is it LTAR?
LTAR.
Long-term
accountable result.
Accountable result.
Yep.
Like that. I think there's, when it comes to the model, it also can be very eye-opening because we don't let people off the hook, meaning like everything that we do can be accounted for, and here is the current assumptions. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball. There's unknowns that we can't account for, but having a model very much keeps, like we talk about accountability, short-term accountability, but also long-term accountability, and we're accountable too because now we have to validate and really justify the things that we share with people as it relates to money because they can see a straight up cash flow ratio model and how it dynamically changes. And so that's very interesting, and I very much think like this. I would love to have a culture. And do you have a culture? Do you have a personal family culture of keeping yourself accountable to your values and the things that you care about long term? And I just think that's an interesting thing. We were talking about the importance of AI and almost using AI to show yourself in different stages of your life. Because even someone that is a visionary, it's hard for me to think about 30 years from now.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily even want to think about 30 years from now, but it's just interesting.
Well, and I think what we talk about all the time and what's in here is results, right? Like, and we have to get clear on what those results are. And I think of accountability as kind of like guardrails on a highway. And, with this idea, and we'll use the financial example of if we're clear on what you want to accomplish, then we set out on a path. Well, however, whatever the interval is, let's just say on an annual basis, we come back and we take a look, like, how did we do? And we might have veered over here and we hit this guardrail and we position back. And then it's like, okay, we're still either we're on track, we're off track, what do we need to optimize, so on and so forth. But it's still in the context of that result. Now, again, maybe the result changed. Maybe you want a different result now, and that's okay, because now we're just pushing that accountability out again, and then we're back to the same thing. We're hitting those guide rails, and I think that's the most important piece here. Is we have to start thinking more long term, because most people can't think past the weekend.
Yeah, yeah,
and it's so important, because then that sets up the process. Like what is a BHAG? Big, very audacious goal. That is a long term target, and you have to keep yourself or your team accountable to the things that you're doing in order to get closer to those goals.
2 things: loss opportunity cost. Every time you make a money decision, it has a long term consequence and a short term. So in the example that I wrote in my book, it's like $100 is not just worth $100; it's worth what that $100 could have earned you over your lifetime. So again, we almost if I could gift one thing to the American race, it would be to understand loss opportunity costs in everything that we do. Every decision we make has a consequence. So that's number one. The second thing is, in my dad wrote a book on health, and he talks about the ripple effect, and he talks about every decision you make today in health-wise, you might not be able to see the effects today, but it will impact your future. And so that's maybe if you need extra motivation while doing push-ups, be like, my future children, or in 25 years, whatever, my body will show up differently because of the decisions I'm making today. And obviously, you could get super extreme, but I think it's the behavior and habits that you have that really model and mold who you are.
Yeah, I think what you said is very interesting, because accountability to something that you can't necessarily see is very difficult.
100%. Yeah.
And that idea of that ripple effect, your dad's book was very powerful for me, of that idea of like, if I eat poorly today, it's not just affecting me today, it's affecting my long-term result. And for me, the long-term result is longevity. So my accountability is to make sure that I do eat healthy, that I do exercise, that I do these things, and do it on a consistent basis. And of course, I really like ice cream, so that doesn't help. And that's like hitting the guardrails, like, probably shouldn't do that, move back over here. But it's all in the context of longevity.
Right. So many things. Many things. Eltar. We'll have t-shirts for you sooner rather than later. Thank you so much for listening to the BetterWealth podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this with the people that you know and love.